All right, we're going to talk quickly about feedback. This is the exercise where you're nurturing and cultivating and strengthening the relationship between the mentor and the mentee. We're going to talk about the importance of it, strategies to improve the feedback, and learn how to initiate these difficult conversations. So why? Why do we need feedback in this relationship? It's sort of our obligation to help our mentee identify and learn skills and knowledge needed for a successful career. It allows us the opportunity to acknowledge the mentee's strengths and to motivate the mentee to work on areas of weakness. And the mentee needs the feedback to move forward in their career. The why. It improves self-awareness. It enhances self-esteem. It can even raise morale through providing reassurance. And it enhances motivation and performance. How about when? Frequently. Frequently and scheduled. You cannot get bogged down pursuing the wrong path, going down the wrong detour. So we have to have frequent, maybe monthly, feedback relationships. It should be an integral part of this relationship. It helps establish and solidify, and as Jill said, situational feedback, both negative and positive, should be provided as soon after the event as possible. So while there's no answer to the when set in stone, it should be frequently. The where. Well, it should not be in the crowded emergency department. It should not be in the elevator. It should not be around people. It should be in a quiet room, one-on-one, and the goal is to create this atmosphere of mutual trust and regard where the mentee understands that you're both working towards this mutual goal, and you want the mentee to see that you are committed to their success. The how. You have to use the words, I'm going to give you some feedback. So sometimes it's appropriate to set the stage and say, we're going to have a feedback conversation. Set the stage so people know what's happening. Be clear, use specific, non-judgmental language, and avoid using the passive tone. You want to include data that shows that substantiates what you're going to say. And after you do this, you ask clear questions. So we are used to the shit sandwich, right? This is like the most classic feedback approach, right? Have you all heard of this? You say something good, you say something good again. You give the really quick negative feedback, and then you say all the good stuff again, right? The shit sandwich. We've all done this, especially when we're racing out the door because you don't really want to give the feedback. So we're going to challenge this and suggest maybe a more stepwise approach to feedback, where you get buy-in, you give the data, you tell them why this matters, and you offer the mentee a moment to reflect and see what their perspective is. Do they understand what you're saying? Do they have anything that they want to add to this? This is a difficult conversation, right? So it's got to be done gently. What to do while receiving feedback. If you are the one receiving the feedback, it's important just to listen because you know how hard it is to give the feedback. It's just as hard to receive it, right? And so you have to give the person some space, allow them to give you the feedback, and wait till they're finished before you respond. Make sure you understand the feedback. You may even want to paraphrase it and ask the mentor to be more specific if you need it. But the key thing is to try not to be defensive. The mentor is just trying to help you, and together you can strategize ways to overcome whatever behavior that they're highlighting, but the key is not to be defensive. So we're going to take a minute now and talk about feedback strategies with our panel, but specifically we're going to look for feedback pearls at this time. Right. You want to go through that?
Yeah, let's actually, we're going to have the chairs help us in a moment with some difficult conversations, but we just want to get through a little more content first. So we wanted to give you some strategies for how to give feedback in a better way than mentioning everything good that the person did and then quickly saying what they did badly and then ending with what they did well, because many times the message gets lost in that. People remember the great things that they're doing, but they weren't actually given constructive feedback, and they didn't actually generate some solutions with you on how to move forward with the problem. And it also just kind of doesn't really emphasize that this was a problem. So one technique that I like a lot is the stop, start, continue technique. So the stop is that you acknowledge there's a behavior that isn't productive, it's not getting you towards your goal, let's find a better way to do this. Start allows you to explore what that solution might be. So I noticed that you are not speaking to me clearly about what you think our meeting agenda should be. And it's really important for me that you come in with a plan for how we can use this time. So I want you to start bringing an agenda to this meeting, just as an example. And the continue is, I've noticed that you set yourself a timeline, and every month you come and you talk to me about how you've moved that timeline forward, and I really appreciate that. The other thing is open questions. So we're going to practice this in a little bit, but questions that start with how and what are generally really helpful. And it allows your mentee or the person that you're talking to kind of to open up to you and say, well, this is how I would approach this, and it allows them the opportunity to give you a sense of what they think a good solution is. And then we talked about the feedback sandwich. So we recently had a leadership meeting at Brown, and one of our vice chairs brought up these 10 powerful questions, and as a tool for people to memorize 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 questions that are helpful to get these conversations going. And so I want you to think about this when we do our sessions right now. So 1, what impact is this having on you? What is working? So, you found an effective way to tackle this problem. This strategy could be used for this other issue that you have. What is another way to look at this? So if your resident, when they're presenting to you, is veering off track, you might want to say, instead of, no, that's absolutely the wrong differential, let's focus in, you might want to say, well, what's another way to look at this? And that's a really encouraging and open way to say, okay, well, broaden your horizons a little bit. What else could we be missing? What might this look like in 6 months? So you might have a mentee that is just starting to generate ideas, and they're just not getting to the point where they're formulating what their goal is. And so this might help them formulate their goal. What does success look like? So let's define what that goal is. What do you envision? What are the roadblocks? What are the next steps, or how do we get there? And what are you willing to commit, and what can I do? So keep those questions in mind. And now we're going to do a breakout session. We want you to pair up with whoever your neighbor is. And you're going to role play one challenge that you currently have in your faculty or resident or medical student problem. And you're going to give feedback using the top 10 powerful questions or the stop, start, continue technique. And then we're going to switch. So if you were the mentor in that pair, you're going to be the mentee.